Birthday to Mark Harris today. Amen.
Supervisor Robel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move for the adoption of this evening's agenda.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on anything on the agenda this evening? Now is your time to talk. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on anything on the agenda this evening? That portion of the meeting will be closed. Reports from committees, commissions, and boards. Supervisor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to point out to the members of Facilities and Property Management Committee, you should have received our agenda for next week's meeting on your desk. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Powell, Supervisor Gabbert, Supervisor Fari have asked to be excused from tonight's meeting, and Supervisor Ramos was deployed to Houston, so he won't be here this evening. And I have to announce that Supervisor Olson has resigned from the board, and that we will be putting an ad in the paper to replace him. Supervisor Locke.
Yes, thank you. I forgot to say last time we were here that I went to the Winnebago County Fair this year, and again, very much enjoyed the pig races, the duck races, and the goat races, as did many others. They are just the cutest, and I hope they will return next year. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, presentation on property assessed clean energy from PACE. I'd like to ask Mr. Jason Stringer from Wisconsin Energy Conservation Corporation to come up. You'll give us a presentation on it.
Hello and good evening. Is this on here? Yeah. Hello and good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for inviting us to come up here to talk about PACE Wisconsin. As was announced, I'm Jason Stringer from the Wisconsin Energy Conservation Corporation, or WEC is the acronym. WEC is a 37-year-old Wisconsin-based not-for-profit corporation that, over its lifetime has been helping homeowners and businesses recognize the economic and environmental benefit of making primarily energy efficiency improvements to their homes and businesses. So we've been working on helping people install lots of new furnaces, put new windows in, and making their houses more efficient and more comfortable. So PACE financing is really an extension of our mission. It's a financing mechanism that applies to commercial buildings. So tonight I wanted to talk to you about PACE Wisconsin, which is the program that makes property assessed clean energy available to business owners here in Wisconsin. But before I talk about PACE financing, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the great organizations that have contributed to this effort, significant resources to help us get to the point where we are today with PACE Wisconsin. Okay. Okay. There's a PowerPoint that will show up behind me eventually. Okay, so I just want to talk about the partnership. And why we decided to do this. So property assessed clean energy is that this financing tool was really invented 10 years ago. Not very much happened. It was a great idea, great concept. But it was about 3-4 years ago, we took another look at it and recognized there's a lot of activity going on across the country. There are 34, 36 other states that have similar enabling legislation to what we have here in Wisconsin. They're doing PACE projects. We saw significant economic activity When you look at the curves for the dollars originated on PACE financing across the country, it's like a hockey stick. So states anywhere from California, Texas, Connecticut, but right here in the Midwest, some of the leaders like Ohio, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, they're all taking advantage of this tool. At the end of the day, property assessed clean energy financing is an economic development tool. What it does is help businesses reinvest in their buildings. It also helps developers and property owners build higher performance new construction. So realizing that this opportunity was out there, we got together first with a group of stakeholders. The city of Milwaukee, they have an active PACE program. They've done 8 or 9 projects in the city over about a 3 or 4 year period, investing about $15 million. They were at the table, but also Von Briesen and Roper, tremendous contribution that firm made to this effort. Andy Guzikowski, Andy Phillips, they do a lot of work with the Public Finance Authority and with local governments, and so they played a very important role in crafting this program. The essence of this program relies a lot on a county ordinance and a joint powers authority. Those are the action items that would come before you if you were to consider becoming a member in PACE Wisconsin. So we're really fortunate that Von Briesen and Roper, on a pro bono basis, developed those program materials and put that together for us. That was very, very valuable. Also, the contributions of the Wisconsin Counties Association has been absolutely invaluable. John Hokemer wanted me, he personally asked me to apologize for not being able to be here tonight. I usually do this with John Hokemer. And as you can, it's here. If you want to go to the next slide. Yeah. We've been across the state, as the next slide will indicate. We've been from north to south, east to west, across the state with this program, and have had good results. Also, the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, they advocate and have endorsed this program. So we've got a whole host of partners that have been contributing to this effort, and we're really fortunate for that. So where we've been, if we can go to the next slide. The counties indicated here in green, there's 23 of them. All of those counties are members of PACE Wisconsin, which means that those member counties have all adopted the model PACE ordinance, and they've become a member in the Joint Powers Authority. And throughout my presentation, I'll talk about what PACE financing is. That's really the subject of the ordinance. The ordinance makes PACE financing available here in the county. And I'll talk generally about the program and the Joint Powers Authority, which is the mechanism by which all of these counties collectively deploy this tool. But just so as we go through these marks and as you have questions, I just want you to keep in the back of your mind, these 23 counties have already been through this process. The ordinance is identical. Every one of these counties has passed the identical ordinance, and of course are members of the Joint Powers Authority, which is the same as the vehicle to make this all come together. What is PACE financing? If we could go to the next slide. Really simply, what PACE financing does is it's a financing tool that helps businesses finance energy efficiency, renewable energy, and water conservation measures to their buildings. So at the end of the day, what we're really doing there is promoting primarily reinvestment in existing buildings. When I look at the projects that are coming before us to utilize PACE financing, a lot of what I'm seeing is these building owners are using PACE financing to fund new HVAC equipment, new windows, and new lighting. Those are probably the top 3 items. And what's unique about that is investments in energy efficiency pay for themselves. So these financings, they're made over long periods of time with low interest rates, and the businesses in most instances are able to recover their investment and the principal and interest with the utility bill savings and the other operating cost savings that come along with these projects. So they pay for themselves in a lot of respects. In fact, the Wisconsin statute, section 660627, which makes PACE financing available here in Wisconsin, it requires that the engineer or the contractor that installs these improvements to buildings, for larger projects, those parties, the contractor or the engineer, has to actually guarantee that the energy benefits pay for themselves. So it's a very secure investment that has very positive economic benefits, which I'll think about a little bit more in subsequent comments. The reason why it's important that counties are involved is that, frankly, the security of these financings is a special charge. And that's a unique application of a tax assessment. Tax assessments, special charges, and special assessments are typically used to fund sidewalks, public safety, and things of that sort. PACE financing is a new application of that special charge or tax assessment, if you will, to promote a public benefit, effectively economic development. So that's why the counties are involved. If we go to the next slide. Just want to talk a little bit about the type of projects that can take advantage, or the type of buildings or properties that can take advantage of PACE financing. Our program, the PACE Wisconsin program, is a commercial PACE program. We've really excluded residential properties. Residential PACE and commercial PACE are really two different projects, or two different products, loan products. They require a different set of rules and considerations. And to keep things simple and timely and effective, we started with a commercial PACE program. Should Winnebago County and the member counties of PACE Wisconsin want to consider residential PACE sometime in the future, that's available to them. But again, this program works for commercial buildings. So that's really a whole host of businesses. When you step back and look at it, we can apply this financing tool to office buildings, retail buildings, industrial buildings, and kind of common commercial real estate buildings. But we can also use this tool for institutional buildings, like a private school, or even potentially a church. Those are institutions that are typically capital constrained, and this tool has been used across the country to help those institutions revitalize their facilities. There's also applications in the agricultural sector. I was just at a farm in Brown County, Brickstead Farm, working with that farmer to help them understand or figure out how to apply PACE financing to an expansion of their cow barns. They've got a big operation there, and they're looking for creative ways to improve the efficiency of their farm, but they also want to put solar panels on their farm. They recognize that they can become more energy independent, and they've got a huge roof there, and so PACE financing is a tool that could potentially help them realize their business goals. So we have a lot of applications in the commercial space. If we go to the next slide. The types of work that we're financing with PACE financing, again, is really any building system that has an impact on the energy or the utility bill or the water bill. So like I said earlier on, in most of the projects we've seen, we're financing HVAC improvements, lighting improvements, and new windows. Those are probably the top three. But you also will see controls and sensors. All of those things have impacts on reducing utility bills. Fans in industrial settings and manufacturing settings, fans, pumps, and motors, they use a ton of energy. We can help finance more efficient devices in that regard as well. Low flow fixtures, so if we can fund sprinklers and faucets and other low flow fixtures to help bring down water bills, but we can also finance renewable energy. So solar panels, in some instances there's been some businesses that have reached out to us and they want to invest in solar, and that's something that they want for their business, so we can help them do that. It's also conceivable that we could do wind, although there's not very many cost-effective applications in small settings of that. But again, back to the agricultural setting, a digester is a form of renewable energy, so we could potentially help finance that installation as well. Just if we go to the next slide, I want to think about how those communities that have adopted PACE have really looked at it as an economic development tool. And for the projects that we've seen, that's really been the story of PACE. We've looked at a couple of hotel projects. We have a couple of office buildings, and then others. Where in some instances we're talking about revitalizing a hotel that's currently vacant right now. So it's not on the tax roll. The developer's looking at doing a substantial investment in the project, and PACE financing is really a portion of the financing for those projects. So I think the hotel project we're looking at is a $22 million project. The PACE financing is $2 or $3 million. So it's really a gap financing tool, and the businesses, what they are realizing at the end of the day is that when they add PACE financing to their development project, it helps drive down the cost of doing business. It helps drive down their cost of capital, and it boosts their profitability in their enterprise because they're operating the building more efficiently. So there's a tremendous business case for it. From the public side of things, for the community, when you can add this, sometimes this financing or financing of this sort can be the difference between having the development project and not having the development project. So we can directly contribute to job growth, helping to revitalize communities, and also, this tool in and of itself can help lower the cost of doing business in your community. So. Tremendous benefits there. And I guess just a general note about the financing and the application of the special charge. PACE financing is it's not a mandatory or mandate of any sort. It's really a 100% voluntary program. So it's really only those businesses that find a business interest or a business need for this financing. They're the only ones that would ever have to pay a special charge for the PACE financing. So it's totally tied to the property in which utilizes the PACE financing, and it's 100% voluntary. It's just a tool really to put in the toolbox for your economic development teams. We've talked a little bit about, if you go to the next slide, talked a little bit about how property owners benefit. I mean, it just boosts the business proposition for them, helps drive profitability, helps them renovate their buildings, which I should have mentioned on the previous slide. Obviously, there's a property value story there as well. And there's a whole host of other benefits that property owners have recognized. Every business has different needs, and they pick up on different benefits of PACE financing, but it's been really interesting to watch how it's received. We've been doing this for probably 2 years now. The whole program really came live in December last year. We continue to do a lot of work with the counties to grow our market, but those counties that came in and are members now, they're economic development folks. The businesses in those communities are coming up with all kinds of creative ideas on how to benefit from this, and it's been really positive to watch the program evolve. So really that, in essence, that's the financing tool that the ordinance that you would consider, that's what that ordinance makes available here in Winnebago County, should you choose to adopt that ordinance. A key feature of that ordinance and a key feature of the program is that, if we can go to the next slide, is that we're trying to do this uniformly here in Wisconsin. The Joint Powers Authority allows us to achieve that. The private sector has said, when you look at programs across the country, what the private sector wants is they want scalability. They want to be able to come to Wisconsin and have one set of rules for how to use PACE financing. And that's how the Joint Powers Authority really helps us achieve that goal. So all of those counties that are members of PACE Wisconsin, they work under a uniform set of guidelines. We're the program administrator, so we do all of the administrative work for PACE Wisconsin. The counties have no cost to run and operate this program. So we take care of all the operating expenses. In return for that, we have a small transaction fee that we earn on projects that close. And we've been at this for a couple of years, and we're pretty close to our first transaction. So this is how much we believe in this, is we've put in a lot of time and energy, all these organizations have, so that, you know, Wisconsin can benefit. And another note that's important to make, the statute, and this is the way all states work, the statute allows private lenders to fund the transactions. Currently, we have 6 lenders participating in PACE Wisconsin, and collectively, those lenders have pledged over $100 million worth of capital to invest in PACE Wisconsin, or in PACE financings here in Wisconsin. So I think that's just the beginning. A lot of those lenders that we have are national lenders who are dedicated to PACE financing. You know, another interesting part of this program has been all of the really good conversations we've had with local financial institutions. They're starting to find out about this program, and it's important. I want to make this, you know, really clear. PACE Wisconsin is an open market program, so really any financial institution that's qualified, and that would include all of our regional banks. And local banks, community banks, they're all welcome to offer PACE financing to their customers, you know, if that's something that their institution wants to do. So again, there's no capital contribution required on the part of the counties. So no operating costs, because we take care of the administrative costs, and no capital commitment to the program. There are private lenders already signed up, ready to make these financings, and we're open to local banks who want to participate as well. So, you know, the program administrator and PACE Wisconsin, again, it's a single point of access for, you know, any of the various parties in the private sector that want to take advantage of this financing. I also get a lot of calls from contractors. You know, a lot of you know, engineering firms, general contractors, roofers, you know, different installers, engineering firms. I may have already mentioned that. They're now registered with our website, PACE Wisconsin. They've identified PACE financing as a tool to help grow their business and potentially sell larger projects. So we have, you know, a good economic development story. A couple of another kind of key feature of the program I want to make a note of. Given that the loans is secured by a special charge, there's a very special there's a relationship between any mortgage loan or a mortgage lien that's on a property and the special charge, which, you know, would be a tax lien of sorts. Because tax liens come before mortgage liens in the stack of priorities on a title, we've made sure that we've aligned our program with the interests of the mortgage lending community here by giving the mortgage lender that's involved in any transaction that's considering using PACE financing, that mortgage lender has to consent to that transaction. So we've effectively given the mortgage lender control over the transaction so that they, you know, are another set of eyes that are reviewing the economics of the deal to make sure that it's economically sound. And then they have to provide consent or we can't move forward with the transaction. So we've aligned our interests with the mortgage lenders in that regard. So I'll just go through one or two more slides, and then I'll turn it over for questions. The final slide is, I'm sorry, it doesn't appear in your packet, but it should be up here. It's a very busy slide, but I just wanted to emphasize, you know, from the beginning, you know, when we started working on this program the first day, you know, the first consideration was how do we protect the interests of the counties? And, you know, I wanted to kind of talk through some of the risk management features that are inherent in this program, and we can talk more if there are questions. I'm going to turn around and make sure I hit all these points here because I don't have that printed either. But again, we've talked about how our member counties aren't required to contribute any dollars to the program. There's a third-party program administrator, and there's private lenders that capitalize the transactions. We've talked about lender consent, how the mortgage lenders are involved in the transaction. They have consent. They're underwriting those transactions, so they're a second and third set of eyes reviewing the economics and the valuability of the investment. That adds a lot of value. This program also, we've made it very clear through our financing agreement that the counties do not act as a guarantor in any way for a PACE transaction. So in the unlikely event, and you know, to date, of the $400 or $500 million of commercial PACE transactions that have been originated, there have not been any delinquencies or defaults. So we have a great track record. Now, that's not to say that something might happen in the future. That's entirely possible. But we've made it explicitly clear in our financing agreement that the PACE lender is on their own. Our counties, our state, or no local, federal, state dollars go into this program in any way. So we've ensured that. An additional note, which is important, a lot of counties, when we started the program and talked about using the tax assessment process in this manner, one of the first comments we got was, well, you know, the counties, you know, didn't want to be the collections agents for private lenders, and that's, you know, that was very clear. So we took advantage of features of the state law that allowed us to bill and collect the PACE financing installment payments directly. So the commission and the administrator take that burden off the county. So the county, again, is relieved of that, of the operating costs of the complication of managing repayments. So really the one thing the county has to do is, in the unfortunate case of a delinquency or a default, after we go through that process and verify that it's a delinquency, the PACE lenders do have the benefit of placing a delinquent PACE special charge on the tax bill for collection. But I want to emphasize the counties have no obligation to make that PACE lender whole on that payment. The PACE lender has to wait in line, and according to the statutory process, just see how that all plays out, and they get paid according to the statutory process that's followed by every county here in Wisconsin. So that's, you know, in a nutshell, some of the risk management. You know, these are the issues we were thinking about in the beginning 2-3 years ago, and they're there to protect the interests of the county. So last slide, I promise. Just for more, if you want more information after our meeting today, a very good resource is pacewi.org. That's the program website. You know, we've got information there for every conceivable stakeholder who might stand to benefit from PACE financing. So there's a special navigation for local governments, property owners who want to take advantage of the PACE financing. You can find out who our lenders are under the lenders section. Even can apply for a PACE financing through this website. So I just want to thank you very much from PACE Wisconsin for considering membership, and I'm here if there's any additional questions or follow-up.
Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I saw the resolution on the Personnel and Finance Committee meeting for Thursday morning, so I kind of wondered what it was. I see there's a kind of a model or template ordinance on the website, but what is the ask? What is the ask of PACE? I mean, what are we specifically getting involved with? I mean,
You're adding an economic development tool to the economic development toolkit here in Winnebago County. So you're really authorizing the use of the special charge as a security to to secure these financings.
And that special charge it's for commercial business only?
Correct.
Okay.
You know, in institutional buildings. It really excludes residential 1 to 4 unit buildings. You know, residential properties, it's a very different regulatory market. The consumer lending market has a very different set of standards, and you know, we think that takes a lot of work before we can get that right, and so we're working with a business-to-business sort of program at this time.
And that special charge is voluntary?
Absolutely, yeah. So a business has to voluntarily apply and go through the underwriting process in order to take advantage of PACE financing. So generally, very generally, if a business owner, you know, if a business owner is contemplating making an improvement to their business and they want to use PACE financing, you know, they develop that project with their engineer and their architect like they would any other kind of improvement. But because of the energy performance of that particular project, they then have PACE financing as an option to pay for it. You know, and what makes PACE financing, what really differentiates PACE financing from a lot of other financing tools is, you know, after you've taken advantage of your mortgage, which is really, that's your commercial mortgage is going to be your cheapest and most effective debt capital. PACE financing can come in and layer on top of that with the consent of the mortgage lender and add, you know, low-cost long-term financing. So the you know, PACE financing can go out 20, you know, in some cases I've seen it go out 30 years. So it's very attractive relative to other types of project finance options out there.
What makes it more attractive necessarily than, say, like a Section 179 tax credit or any other type of you know, some type of a shelter vehicle for doing these types of projects?
Yeah, you know, I always get that question, and what's been interesting to watch rather, is how developers are combining different forms of financing to get a total package together in order to fund their projects. So in fact, a lot of the projects that we're looking at right now and working on, they all have tax credits involved in them already. We have instances with, you know, a lot of historic tax credit projects. They're using PACE financing to help fund the energy retrofit component of a redevelopment project. So it just layers on to the capital stack.
And you had said that sometimes these PACE loans are the difference between having that business in the municipality or not. Can you name any of those businesses?
Well, right now, the Hotel Retlaw I was thinking a lot about the Hotel Retlaw in Fond du Lac. That's a 100-year-old hotel building. You know, a lot of operators have tried to keep that building going, and but have, you know, not been able to. So unfortunately, that building is vacant now, and off the tax rolls. You know, the county's been working very diligently to renovate that building. And the developer who's taken a shot at it now has a capital structure where you know, they're using historic tax credits, but they also asked the county to add PACE to it because it helped improve their business case for renovating that hotel. You know, and so I think there's still a lot of work to be done in order, you know, before we see the doors open for that hotel. But I'm really referring to that project because in that case, PACE financing was a difference maker for them.
And throughout the counties, you had the map there where you've presented this, and counties that have adopted the program. Have there been any counties that have not adopted the program or voted against the resolution?
We haven't had any counties vote against the resolution. We've had, I got to be honest with you, we're kind of at capacity. We're working. We have more counties that are interested than we have the capability to follow up with. So what we've been doing is really working with the counties that really see benefit in this. You know, there's one county that's been you know, kind of tentative about it, but other than that, we've had a really good experience with the program. You know, and it often takes a lot of trips to the county, like, because it's just a new way to finance building improvements, and so we often make 5 and 6 trips to a given county before we're successful. So it's a lot of work, and if you multiply that across the 23 counties, and that's not all that we do. We're a very small, kind of lean at this point in time. We rely a lot on our partners like Von Briesen Counties Association. We're also working to develop the market, help educate contractors, help educate businesses, and help them understand how to use this tool. So we do a lot of different forms of outreach other than just the county outreach.
It kind of leads me to the last question then. You said it's promoted by the Wisconsin Counties Association. I noticed that just about every member of the board of directors is a current county board supervisor. Is there any reason for that?
Oh, of Pace, Wisconsin?
That's correct.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of mechanics to the program, and I didn't get into all of them, but the Joint Powers Authority is the vehicle by which all of these counties jointly offer PACE financing there. And the Joint Powers Authority has a board of directors. It's a public entity. So each of our member counties has a director that sits on that Joint Powers Authority, and they ultimately have to approve PACE, the application of PACE financings. So that anytime we close a PACE financing, that board of directors has to review the project and approve the special charge, the application of the special charge to secure that financing. So they play a very key role in that regard. The Joint Powers Authority, which is really technically the Wisconsin PACE Commission, they also authorize and establish the guidelines for the program, which is really all articulated on the website. We also have a program manual. So we're really governed by WEC. WEC is under contract to the Wisconsin PACE Commission and subject to the decisions of that board of directors. So every county, when they take action, they pass the ordinance, and then the resolution. Within that resolution, there's a mechanism for establishing who would be the board of director for that member county.
Okay, so the website must be just a little bit behind because they only note maybe 16 of the 23 board of directors from the various counties then, so.
My apologies.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I got yeah, the most recent members, Troy Streckenbach, county executive for Brown County, is the director from Brown County. In some cases, the counties haven't gotten around to naming their director, but I'm behind by about 4 directors. Sorry about that. I got the map is up to date though. Nice. So,
Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Stringer, I see that Alan Bouchel is the chairman of your Joint Powers Commission. And I have a high degree of, or he displays a high degree of credibility in my eyes. And so I would be leaning toward supporting this as the county may go forward. But I'd like to ask you to clarify just what is that special charge? Is it a percentage of the transaction of the loan? Is it a basic $250 fee, or what is that special charge?
that's a great question. So if in the case where a PACE financing is originated, let's say it's $1 million PACE financing, it's repaid over 20 years, ignoring interest, ignoring that there's interest charge. Let's just say the repayment of that loan is $50,000 a year. So that would be the special charge. Each year, the property would incur a $50,000 special charge, which is effectively installment payment to repay the PACE financing over the term.
Okay, and where does the county come in, into the picture with the special charge? Is it just like maybe a sewer improvement that the landowner had to pay that maybe he didn't pay?
That's a great question too. So in this program, the PACE Commission authorizes the use of the special charge in this financing. So, assuming the project is developed and it's developed according to our guidelines, PACE Commission would vote on it and authorize the use of that special charge. And then from that point in time on, the home county wouldn't have to manage or do anything with respect to that special charge. What's unique about our program is the PACE Commission, that public body, they issue an invoice, a separate invoice that's separate and distinct from the tax bill, and recover and repay that financing through that off-bill repayment mechanism. So the commission bills and collects and then sends the money to the lender. And if everything happens according to contract, the county never has to do any work. It's only in the event that business fails to pay their special charge. In that case, we can take that delinquent $50,000 and place it on the tax bill as a special charge and collect it through the tax bill. It's only those cases where there's a delinquency. So that's what the county would have to do.
Well, that would impose a great burden, it would seem to me, in some respects, to the county. I've been here long enough to see tax delinquencies come through annually, and the county buys out the taxes from the other taxing units, the municipalities, and it goes on as a taxed lien. Now, you're presenting a private mortgage, which is called, actually, it seems to me, the payback of the mortgage is called special charge. It's one and the same. Am I correct?
It's like a mortgage. It's just a
It's
tax
the-
lien.
it's
It's a
the
tax
mortgage-
lien
it's the
instead of a
mortgage
mortgage
payment.
lien.
It's the mortgage payment for that loan. And the nexus of it would seem to me, would be, like you say, in the case of a delinquency, here you have $1 million loan that was halfway paid off, so there's still $500,000 left to go over the next 10 years, and for some reason, that property owner, is out of the picture, and then, because the property is delinquent in its taxes, it then becomes taxes are bought by the county from the other municipalities, and what happens to that mortgage, the $500,000 that encumbers the property, when the county wants to clear the books?
There's a couple of, I'd like to interject a few considerations there. One, the first one is, the county's not required to settle or true up with a PACE lender. So the PACE lender it does not receive the same benefits that you might give to your other taxing jurisdictions here in the county, like your municipalities. That's made clear in our financing agreement, that there's no county guarantee of this PACE special charge. So in that case, the county does incur costs in order to record, their administrative costs to record the special charge on the tax roll, which there are mechanisms and policies in place here in the county to compensate the county for those administrative expenses. But first and foremost, the county does not guarantee, nor is it responsible for paying any portion of that $50,000 past due PACE special charge to the PACE lender. Now, let's move up a little bit in the chronology here, a little bit, and take into consideration a few of the other factors that would come into play in the unfortunate case of a delinquency or a default situation. In most cases, if not all cases, where there's a PACE financing, there is also a mortgage loan in place. A mortgage loan is going to be in place for, let's say, 50 to 70% of the property. PACE financing is going to be about 10 to 20% of the PACE of the value of the property. Should the property owner go delinquent on their payments, they typically go delinquent to all of their all of their debtors, if you will. So mortgage lender, within 30 days of not receiving the mortgage payment that they're due to receive, will default the property and start those processes. In those processes, mortgage lenders typically step in and start paying the property taxes and the other expenses on the property, because the mortgage lender doesn't want the taxing authority to foreclose out their mortgage. So there's a lot of inherent security there. Should we get to the case where we have a delinquency or default situation, we look to the mortgage lender, I think, in most cases, to clean those things, those problems up before we get to the county remedies for a delinquent tax foreclosure. Some additional considerations, we, in this process, we can't predict what businesses, with absolute certainty whether or not they'll be successful or not. But we do know that in the case of these buildings, they have new systems. We've improved their collateral. I'm looking at a lot of the projects we're looking at. I've got one building where they still have the original coal-fired boiler in the basement. Okay, so this project's gonna, we're gonna take that out and we're gonna put in a state-of-the-art HVAC system. So, we will be dealing with buildings, if we get to that situation, we will be dealing with buildings that have, they're a lot more marketable. So hopefully I got to all the aspects of that question. That's a great question, and we, that's every county is very aware of that. So that, we were, when we built the program, we thought very hard about those things, and again, about how we manage the county's risk in the program. So,
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed that you included nonprofits in this, and you've also mentioned that should a borrower be delinquent, it would go against their taxes. But what happens with in the case of a nonprofit, where there are no property taxes?
And that's a great. I'm gonna add something related to that. That's not exactly what your question is, but to address your question directly, when a nonprofit applies for a PACE financing, what we do in that case is establish a tax ID or a tax key for that property. They may already have one because they're paying other special assessments, so they don't necessarily have to pay property taxes, but we will establish a tax key for them so that they're in the system, and so we'll, like, administratively, that's how we'll facilitate that connection to the tax bill with a nonprofit. Now, I think a lot of counties, when we've talked about nonprofits, have had, they've had certain different thoughts about, what it means to have a nonprofit or certain entities take advantage of this financing. In some cases, we've had treasurers who have been concerned about the front page test of having potentially to foreclose on a church, for instance, which would be very unfortunate. To protect the county's interest in that regard, within the articles of the Joint Powers Authority is a veto authority, which effectively, it's a home county veto authority. So a feature of this program effectively lets the counties control what is going on, which properties are taking advantage of the PACE financing and which is not. So when we go through that project approval, the vote that I talked about, that has to happen at the commission level where the board of directors have to vote, the member or the director from the home county has to vote in favor, or the transaction stops there. We've just had some counties that have wanted a little bit more control over who's really using this tool. So we've instituted that, but that may be extra information.
I'm still not sure. You assigned it a tax ID number, and it actually probably already has a tax exempt ID number, but it's a 112-year-old church, and maybe it's got the coal burning thing in the basement you're talking about. There's no mortgage, there's no taxes. What are you, and they fail, you can't foreclose, they don't have a mortgage, they don't pay taxes, you can't go against taxes. Who's covering that? Should they fail to pay their...
If we get into a case where that's a scenario, it's the PACE lender that's not getting paid.
Well, okay, what is it you need from the county? Why are you here tonight? What are you expecting us to do when you go back to your seat, or we take up this business next month? What is it we're hoping that you will accomplish here tonight that you'll see us do?
Really, I'm here to introduce the ordinance, resolution, and joint powers authority that's a requirement for Winnebago County to become a member of PACE Wisconsin. So I think that's totally Winnebago County's option, but what we would hope is that you would recognize the merits of becoming a member of PACE Wisconsin and to vote and approve the ordinance and the resolution to become a member of PACE Wisconsin. So, and then you can participate in the program, the county can, and use this tool.
Supervisor Binder.
I guess what I maybe don't understand is the person that holds the first mortgage at financial institution would have to waive their rights because you would be the first one in line if they defaulted? Because normally the county gets made whole, then the first mortgage. You would actually be giving like a second mortgage is what they'd call it, but you're bumping ahead of the person that has the first mortgage. So if they finance $10 million through me and we're getting $1 million from you, why would I give up that right when I should be the next one to be paid versus the $1 million that you're gonna give them?
That's why we have mortgage lender consent in this program. That mortgage lender looks at the transaction before it's originated and decides whether or not it goes forward. So in that case, that mortgage lender has already had a decision. Do I want to let this go forward or not? And that's how it stands. So that mortgage lender's in control of the
Correct.
transaction.
But how many institutions will actually give up their first mortgage when they basically, if the place defaults, the county gets made whole, they get made whole, but now you're gonna go ahead of them. So if you borrow them $1 million, you get made whole and I get what's left.
Well, there's hundreds of financial institutions, mortgage lenders that have consented to PACE financings. And I mean, it's starting to get very, very, nuanced, but generally, here's why they consent to PACE financings. One, that banking is a relationship business. And if their trusted customer comes to them and says they want something for their business, they'll do it on that basis. But they also look at the cash flow. They look at the economics of the project, and they recognize that the project boosts the business's profitability by reducing its expenses. It's improving the collateral, so it's improving the value of the real estate. So it's actually putting the mortgage lender in a better position.
But essentially, isn't that what a second mortgage is? They could do the same thing with a second mortgage and avoid PACE altogether?
Yeah, absolutely. If that's what's in the best interests of a business, the business makes the decision. So absolutely, if a business sits down and looks at their options and says, "Hey, they make the decision."
Thanks.
Yeah.
Supervisor Gordon.
Yes, you mentioned that agriculture is one of your things, and you talked about the farm in Brown County. Winnebago County is quite heavily invested in agriculture. Does it only apply to like large operations, like say a CAFO, or would it be smaller farms as well that would be eligible?
Yes, smaller farms would be eligible, provided that it's, applied to the business side of the farm. And, we're working, that's just a very important sector here in Wisconsin, and we're working hard to figure out applications and get our first few projects in that sector. So we recognize how important that is. There isn't a county I go to that doesn't have maybe Ashland County is an exception, but most, if not all counties have an agricultural sector. And we recognize how important those businesses are to Wisconsin. So we're looking to, get a case study there. We're going to start there, baby steps. So yes.
Okay,
Short
so,
answer.
thank you.
Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I need to apologize, first of all, because I've read this material, and I've been very carefully listening and thinking about this, and I'm afraid I don't get it. What's the problem? What are you going to do to solve our problem, whatever that is? And I guess there's three questions. Why us, why now, and why you? Can you answer that, please?
That's a great question. I'm here to present an opportunity for Winnebago County. Like I said, we've just started, and we have 6 lenders who want to invest over $100 million in PACE transactions here in Wisconsin. PACE financings promote economic development, and that's, I think, an opportunity for Winnebago County, should you choose to take advantage of it.
Supervisor Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I may have missed, is this only for a new construction, or is this, as Supervisor Bender said, a second mortgage later on? Can it be used?
That's a great question. PACE financing can be used for both existing buildings, and that's where it's typically taken advantage of, is with existing buildings, but we also can use it on new construction. In the case of existing buildings, what we're using PACE financing to do is replace old obsolete equipment that's past its useful life, to upgrade systems, renovate buildings. In new construction, we use PACE financing to build higher performance new construction.
Okay, so to expand or expound on Supervisor Bender's question, I own Business A. I'm mortgaged with Bank A, which is not a participant in this program, and now I want to do a second mortgage or take a PACE loan out. Don't we arrive at the same problem that Supervisor Bender talked about as to who gets paid off first? Because that first bank didn't agree or didn't voluntarily participate.
Well, in the case of Business A, mortgage lender for Business A looks at the PACE transaction and says yes or no. It's that simple. So the mortgage lender for Business A actually decides whether or not Business A can take advantage of PACE financing.
Okay.
It's full stop there. If the mortgage lender doesn't want to have anything to do with it, that's and it's a competitive market. I've heard of cases where property owners are starting to work with mortgage lenders who are receptive to having PACE financing combined. But it's the mortgage lenders in position and control.
So, and I understand that the purpose of this is to help the community grow or develop businesses, et cetera. But at the P&F committee meeting, my question, and I think I heard you answer this, is the fact that our representative, if we were to join, our representative, the board of directors has to give the final vote on all loans. It's not like you meet quarterly and something happens in the middle, correct?
Absolutely. They'll have special meetings for each financing, and they'll happen telephonically.
Okay. So that way at least you're not holding up the business.
Yep, to the best of our ability. It's, you know, we just did one. It's a challenge to get 23 people together, but we did it, so.
Thank you.
Supervisor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With 22 or 23 counties in Wisconsin involved, how many projects have gone through the PACE program?
We have over 30 projects that we're working on right now. I would say there's 3 of them that are very close to moving forward. But we're still new, and those projects are, the projects that are using PACE financing have a lot of, I'll just say that PACE financing isn't holding up their closing. We're ready to go. So I think we're very close to having our first example here in Pace, Wisconsin. Keep in mind, Milwaukee's had 8 or 9 closed transactions. And again, we saw that activity there and we said, well, why can't the rest of Wisconsin benefit from that? We saw what was going on across the nation. There's over 1,000 that have been closed across the nation, so.
So there have been 8 in Milwaukee County?
Yes, sir.
Any of the other 21 or 22 counties, how many have there been?
We're still working on our first one.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're still.
Okay, there are no more questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Highway Department road projects. I would like the Highway Commissioner to come up, and he will explain.
Well, good evening, everybody. This presentation I provided or had shown the Highway Committee last month, and it's just I guess the presentation is geared to raise awareness to our system and some of the things I've noticed. So going through the presentation, I'll point out some of the things. It'll just be a kind of an overview of some of the needs I see on the system that I think we need to address. And there's some videos for each of the roadways that I've identified. And I'll apologize now. The video's a little shaky, driving down the road trying to videotape the roadways as you're going. So, but you'll get a pretty good idea of what I'm talking about. I'll stop and pause at key points through the videos to point out a few things. First of all, I guess I wanted to start out by stating that I've gone through the entire system and I've developed kind of a draft CIP, just so I have something to work with in my own mind. This draft CIP will certainly see a few changes, and this is what I'll be presenting to the county executive.
The very first page looks like one of Chuck's budget pages. And we can't understand what it is.
Similar, I guess, yes. And it's hard to read, but it lists the highway projects I have identified that need something or should have something done to them by year, and then it totals them all out at the bottom. As I said, I have evaluated the system. The pavement conditions in Winnebago County are very good. Winnebago County has done a great job maintaining its highway pavement condition. There's no doubt about that. But I did identify several geometric deficiencies on our system. And what I mean by geometric deficiencies, some roadways have issues such as horizontal curves are below standards. Those are the curves that you travel around. There's vertical curve deficiencies where you're traveling over hills. There's slopes, ditch slopes that are below standards. Some of the ditches are steep and they're deep. There's some right-of-way obstructions that should be addressed. There's poor drainage in many areas. And we live in a flat county, I guess, so that's inherent to the county, but there's things that we can do to improve drainage. And then pavement widths and shoulder widths are also areas that we need to take into consideration. You know, narrow pavements with narrow shoulders don't provide a lot of safety on our highway system. As I said, there are some ditches that are deep and they're steep. And what those deep ditches do is they present a rollover hazard for vehicles. So if a vehicle were to wander off the road and go into the ditch and the ditch is steep, the vehicle will have a tendency to roll over. And those are situations we want to try to avoid as much as we can. And certainly with new construction, those things are taken into account with the design. And in addition to that, they're difficult to maintain. They're hard to mow. We can't get our tractors in there sufficiently to mow. And they present a difficult scenario for us during our maintenance activities. Historically, the county's been repaving roadways and not really addressing the safety or capacity issues. Not that that's a bad thing. Again, like I said, the pavements are in very good condition in Winnebago County, but there are some safety issues that I believe we need to address over the next several years. You know, moving into the future, I guess, would be a better way to say that. And again, with these projects, I do intend to pursue state and federal funding, but again, state and federal funding or funds are limited, and most projects would likely be funded through the county bonding process. The first project I've identified is County Highway T from Pioneer Road to County II, and I have a pointer I can point it out for you. From Pioneer Road, this is Pioneer Road, this is II, so it's this section through here, through Larson. So if everybody can visualize that. And as I start the video, I'm going northbound on County T, approaching Pioneer Road, and I'll go around the curve traveling towards Larson. So I'll start the video here. Oops. Okay, again, I apologize for the shaky video. And this is a section I'm traveling on that we just paved this summer. This is south of Pioneer Road. And as we approach the curve, I'll stop. So as you'll see, County T continues around the curve to the left. Pioneer Road goes straight to the north. I guess keep that in mind. The next slide I talk about ties into all this. So as you travel County Highway T northbound towards Larson, you can see the pavement conditions in poor condition in this segment. You'll start to see some of the ditches as you move along are getting a little deeper. Primarily the concern with this segment of road is coming up. You can see the deeper, steeper ditches. And as we approach here shortly, the roadway will curve to the right. And this curve is a curve that is what would be below current design standards. So as you approach the curve, you can see it's difficult to see other traffic coming from the other direction. The roadway's narrow, and you can see on the inside of the curve here, that gravel, cars are constantly cutting that curve short and eroding that gravel and eroding the edge of the pavement. That creates a safety hazard as well. And the reason they're doing that is because that curve is so sharp, they're trying to lessen that curve on their own by traveling over the shoulder of the road. So as we go around the curve, drainage is minimal. Then then the roadway will curve to the left again, and this curve would be marginal, I guess, whether it's within standards. As we travel to the north, again, keep an eye on ditches. We have a structure right here that's will probably need to be addressed. There's a box culvert underneath the highway. And then we start entering into Larson. We have residential development on both sides of the road, several driveways. And then we get into the area that, you start getting into some of the commercial properties within Larson itself. It's almost as though the highway is a rural design through a commercial area. There's several commercial businesses. You have the Larson Co-op, several other businesses around the curve. As you get a little further, County Highway T goes to the right, so there's a no stop, and you make the curve, and you can see where people are parking. Look at, they're right on the side of the highway. That's not where cars belong on a county highway. There's remnants of an old sidewalk along the edge of the road. Through here, there's portions of it where there's some old sidewalk, and then there's portions where there's no sidewalk at all. You have large trees within the right-of-way there. There's drainage issues. There's always water standing through here. As you move around the curve continuing to the north towards Double I, the town hall is on your right, town of Clayton. And then we're almost to County Double I. Again, notice the deeper ditches. We have drainage coming from the quarries to the north here, going through these ditches. The Northeast asphalt plant is on your right to give you an idea of where we are. And then we come to the intersection. Visibility is pretty good at the intersection, so there really wouldn't need to be a whole lot done at the intersection itself, in my opinion. As you can see pretty far in both directions. Okay, so keep that in mind. So now we'll move to the next slide, which ties in to this one. And this is Pioneer Road from County Highway, or it's a County Highway T alternative. And this, in my opinion, and this I'll show you on the map here. That, in my opinion, is a better alternative or route for County Highway T. It's more direct to the County Highway Double I intersection. And to be honest with you, I think most people traveling through this area use that as the county highway currently, and it's only a town road now. I've talked to the town administrator, and they are receptive to discussing whether there could be some mutual benefit to jurisdictionally transfer County Highway T, existing T, to the town, and the county take over Pioneer Road. Those are discussions that we could have in the future. But again, this is just an option for consideration. So I'll start the video, and you'll see Pioneer Road, which I would envision being County Highway T in the future. So we're approaching the same intersection as before. And now envision yourself traveling on a new County Highway T to the north. Another thing I want to mention is this intersection has two legs or two connections to County Highway T, Pioneer Road. Both of those are at skew angles that are really unsafe. When you have town road connections to a county highway or a state highway, it's always best to have one connection as close to a right angle as possible to provide better visibility. When you approach County Highway T off of Pioneer Road on such an angle, you have to look so far over your shoulder, it's difficult to see if traffic is coming. So that poses a hazard. So that's the first thing that we would need to look at. Moving north, Pioneer Road again is currently a town road. So this would have to be reconstructed to meet county design standards for safety. The roadway's pavement's narrow, the shoulders are narrow, the ditches are deep, more so than what's currently existing on County T. There are some vertical curves here that would have to be addressed. It would likely require purchasing some right-of-way along both sides to fit everything in properly. The roadway's in fairly poor condition, but again, like I said, most of the traffic traveling through here are using this as a shortcut off of County I and are essentially using it as County T as it is today. So we're approaching County Highway I soon, and there's another aspect that should be addressed at the intersection itself. As you approach the intersection, you'll see, looking to the left or to the west, visibility is very good. You see a long way down the highway. Looking to the east, there's a vertical curve that obstructs your view. It gives you limited time to react to traffic, oncoming traffic. Now, this is a sunny day. Envision yourself on a rainy day where it's cloudy or it's snowing and it makes visibility a little more difficult. That vertical curve poses an issue, and in fact, if you were to drive out there today, you'll see a cross on the intersection that someone was killed at that intersection by an accident where people couldn't see properly. Okay, the next roadway I've identified is County N from Double F to State Highway 44. This area here would be Pickett. So I'm starting at Double F, traveling towards State Highway 44. First thing you'll notice is, besides the shaking of the video, I apologize for that, the vertical curve that you first approach when you travel in that direction. And if you stop, now envision yourself at this point, it gives you limited opportunity or decision time to react to something in the roadway. Say there's a broken down vehicle or somebody's child is playing in the roadway, they're chasing their ball out onto the roadway or something like that. Anything that's in the roadway, vertical curves, steep vertical curves and sharp horizontal curves provide limited reaction time to people traveling on the highway to react to those types of unexpected things that you might find on the, as you're driving. That's why we need to design our roadways to meet standards to accommodate those, to make them provide more safety. So again, this is the first vertical curve that we come across, and this isn't the worst on this segment. That's further down the road. You'll see something that's much more severe. Segments of the roadway aren't really too bad as far as the ditches, things like that. Minimal reconstruction work, I think, would be required. Just taking off the tops of these hills more or less to improve the sight distance. The lion's share of the work, this would mostly be a repaving type operation, but further up the road here is where we get into the lion's share of the issue that's associated with this segment of county highway. So a lot of these county highways were laid out years and years and years ago when these were just probably wagon trails at one time, and they just, become roadways over time, and town roads, and then county roads, and so on. And a lot of these roads, that's how they were initially developed. So as we approach this vertical curve, you'll see how steep it is. And this provides extremely limited ability to react to obstructions or other vehicles coming from the other direction. Extremely limited. It's very steep and it has a very sharp horizontal curve right on the top of the road. And what's happening is the highway's going up the hill and it's traveling along an escarpment or something to that effect along the top of a hill. The trees are encroaching the road, providing a tremendous amount of shade, and it doesn't really lend itself well to a safe roadway. The ditches are almost non-existent up here. There's other horizontal and vertical issues as we move towards 44. Pavement's in very poor condition. And one thing I noticed through here is there's a lot of truck traffic traveling out of Pickett towards County Highway, from county towards County Highway FF. And I think they're using it to, shortcut through. And here we're approaching a horizontal curve that's pretty extreme. And watch as I go around the curve. That's not giving you much to look at. You look at how steep the ditch back slopes are, and the crops are growing right in that corner. Very limited visibility. Numerous vehicles, and then you'll see a dump truck. We've already passed one or two, I think, in the video. Another one will be making the turn here. There's a cemetery on the right. We're almost to 44 here. You just saw a dump truck turn off of 44 to cut through. So it's getting a lot of heavy use. Oops. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is County Highway O from Highway 141 to II. It's in the village of Fox Crossing in the town of Neenah, I guess, right? Menasha? Okay, and we're starting at our maintenance jurisdiction, which is actually just west of the highway. The cemetery is on your left. This is a rural two-lane county highway through an urban setting, I guess, the best way to describe this. A lot of development on the side of the highway with, numerous driveways with ditches that are problematic with drainage. We have a structure under the highway here that drains the subdivisions, and actually water off of County II drains through here. And off to the south of this, back in here, the township is working on developing a stormwater detention pond. And that would work very well with our future plans with this segment of County Highway to be able to work with the township, maybe with the development of that detention pond, in order for us to have stormwater credits in our MS4. I would envision this segment of County Highway to be urbanized, just to accommodate the urban setting that it's in. And if we can take advantage of that stormwater detention pond, we can treat that water without having a tremendous impact to our MS4. On your left is Pierce Manufacturing. I'll give you a landmark, and we're approaching County Highway CB. So we're at the intersection of CB currently. And County Highway O continues to the west. So you can see there's a lot of commercial, it's a mix of commercial and residential developments along this segment. And it's almost like a remnant county highway. It's a little like Waukah Avenue almost, you know. Really serves very little function for the county highway system itself. I have talked to the town chairman, and the town chairman is interested in working with the county if we wanted to talk about a jurisdictional transfer down the road as well. And here we are at County Highway II. So it's a much shorter segment of highway, but again, poses some unique needs on our system. And then finally, the last segment I want to talk about is County Highway P. It's up in the city of Appleton, city of Menasha, village of Fox Crossing area. We're starting at Memorial Drive and driving towards Midway Road. This section of County Highway is filled with commercial developments on both sides. And it has a rural cross-section. It has ditches on both sides. The driveways are so close. The ditches can't be maintained, and drainage is an issue out here. What I would envision on this section of highway would be to match what the city of Appleton is planning to do east of here, and that would be to reconstruct it with a center turn lane, two-way left turn lane, one lane in each direction with bike paths and pedestrian accommodations on the outside. Every time I've gone through here, I've seen people walking along the shoulder of the road. Again, drainage is a problem. Pavement condition is below average. Driveways are very close to one another. A lot of development on both sides, commercial use. And we have complaints constantly from the property owners that their ditches aren't draining, their culverts are failing. You name it, it's a drainage problem out here. As we go around the curve, going to the south, Myron Construction will be on your left, and then we're approaching Midway. We'll be approaching Midway Road, which is where I would envision this project to end. South of Midway Road would be just a repaving project at some point in the future. You can see how close the trees are to the roadway. It's just a highway that is in need of attention. Above and beyond just repaving, I guess, put it that way. So here we are at the Midway Road intersection, which would be the end of the project. Oops. Okay, that's it. Again, it was, I guess my intent tonight was to raise awareness to some of the needs, and I'll open it up to some questions.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you were to reroute that Highway T, that was going to go through, I think, Larson, and reroute it to make it go straight ahead instead of making those curves, what businesses are in there that would be impacted by bypassing that area? What were all those buildings that we drove by?
On Pioneer Road itself?
Well, I think it's on T.
On T in Larson?
Yes.
You have Larson Co-op is in Larson. There's a few tavern, restaurant businesses. The town hall is there. A few other businesses are located in Larson itself.
And if it were, if T were to go straight ahead instead of making those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 curves to get to double I, then would the county still maintain that road for use?
No, what I would envision we would need to do in order for that to happen is jurisdictionally transfer, which means we would give up ownership of the existing County T to the town, and we would take over ownership of Pioneer Road, so the town actually would take over the portion of
Okay.
the county highway.
So those businesses would not be impacted negatively because the roads would still be maintained, but by the town of Larson rather than by the county?
Right, yep.
Thank you.
Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In regards to the videos, and this is from a guy who's been, did you shoot the videos yourself when you were driving?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been in 2 accidents since the end of April and totaled 2 cars in less than 7 weeks because of distracted driving. I just find it a little bit shocking that somebody is driving and shooting these videos, and I would just implore you, if somebody shoots these videos again, call me. I'll come and I'll sit with you and I'll shoot a video. I'm still going through workman's comp issues, massage therapy, physical therapy, chiropractic, the whole deal. And if we could save a person from having to go through that, that'd be a best practice. So if we don't have to shoot a video when we're driving, that'd be outstanding, first of all. Secondly, in regards to the first project, is anybody complaining about the current structure of County T? Are the residents of that area complaining about it?
I'm not aware of any complaints directly from residents on any of our county highways other than drainage complaints, that are existing on several of our roadways.
And the only other issue I can see with, if you reroute T through what is currently Pioneer Road and you get to that intersection, it seems like a very expensive proposition to do something with that vertical hill that you were talking about. So wouldn't we just be better off leaving an intersection that's a county road where it's at instead of changing it and have to spend, and if people want to use that instead of using the county highway, I get it, but they're taking that risk, by themselves. That'd be my comment on that one. And the second one is, some of these videos that you showed, they look like county roads to me. That's kind of why people drive county roads. They get the shade, they get the trees by the side of the road. That's county road. The last one, County AP, there is a vertical curve situation just south of where you want to stop. And if you go on your map, Midway Road south to the overpass,
Okay.
the 441 overpass, if you are on Gordon Street heading east and you're at that stop sign, you can't see jack squat coming over that overpass. And I've brought that to the town's attention several years ago, several times. Can we even reduce the speed limit? And some of these situations, the best medicine or best practice to me would just be to reduce the speed limit. But you can't see anything there. To me, if anything on that whole stretch needs attention, the drainage is an issue. You're never gonna be able to make that wide enough to incorporate, to rebuild the base of that road and reconstruct the ditch system there to have bike lanes on either side of that. It's far cost prohibitive. But if you can fix that vertical hill, that vertical curve, I think you called it rather, sorry, that might be the best thing to happen there. And that's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Knitsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, you mentioned a number of times standard. You use the word term standards, middle standards. Is there an actual criteria, or then a wish list, or Mr. Haig mentioned, Supervisor Haig mentioned slowing down, and also I think some more warning signs within the trick. But in referring to the standard, can you address that, please?
Yes, standards, currently highways that are designed today meet minimum design standards for vertical curves, horizontal curves, ditch slopes, that type of thing, and they're established by the state of Wisconsin, Department of Transportation, which then they use the AASHTO standards, the American Association of Highway Officials. So they're federal standards adopted by the state for design criteria to maximize the safety of the highways or roadways in our state. So people using those roadways are safe when they travel through our system.
I happen to believe they've been updated, that they're not the originals.
They continuously update the standards, yes.
Thank you.
Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Palonin, I'd like to reiterate something I think I have said before. In a recent study that was in the front page of the newspaper a couple months ago, Winnebago County was identified as the second of 72 counties with roads in improved and best condition. We were only behind Ozaki County, which is the smallest county, and by the way, the county with the highest income per capita in the state. So condition of the roads compared to our peers, we seem to be in good shape. I am concerned about what one of my colleagues has mentioned in respect to whether there have, in these four scenarios, been accidents, sheriff reports, and complaints in respect to, if it's broke, fix it. If it ain't broke, you don't fix it. I would also bring, I would imagine that you're presenting this in addition to the executive's capital improvement plan for the 5 years. And in 2017, we're programmed to spend about $3.2 million. In 18, $5.5 million. In 2019, $8 million. And in 2020, $7 million on highway improvements. Now, I don't know where we're going to find additional monies to justify these proposals, but I would think we'd rather like to see some support from the people in those communities complaining or recommending that we do some upgrading. That's my perspective.
Thank you.
Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. County O and County P, I know you kind of mentioned about the jurisdictional transfer of O, which makes sense, and I'm thinking back to my years with the department, especially County P. That was a little more open then, and I haven't kept up with, who owns what over there, but with Menasha becoming Fox Crossings, there really isn't any rural land left over there, is there? I mean,
Very little, no.
considering that county highways are, the function of them is to connect communities, P and AP really don't connect any communities anymore because they're already connected.
Right.
So that would be a consideration there. Obviously, the county would have to bring those up to those standards you talked about to do that transfer. And back to County O, once CB severed that became the same way. So I'm just making a comment that I think you're right about those need to be looked at to not even be on our system anymore.
Right. That's the intent.
Okay, thank you. There are no other questions.
Thank you.
Supervisor Robel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move that we adjourn until September 19th at 6 PM. Thank you.
They are adjourned.